Hello, Jeffrey.
Jeff,
Hello, Joel.
how are you doing today?
Very well.
Which way did you come?
Straight south of.
1438?
South Olmsted.
Yeah,
South
sure.
Olmsted.
Yeah.
Answer?
Yep. So where's the worst area?
Well, you can't go east, west,
Can't go west out of town. Number 9 caved in out there.
big hole in the ground.
And then is it west of St. Ansgar then too?
If that's open yet or not.
Over to Carpenter. I'm not sure if that's open or not.
Cause I was supposed to have a meeting there last night and we just did it by phone. They said, don't even drive out, they said. So that's why I was told you, I was gonna stay up, but I thought I was
Yeah.
going home and go this morning. So,
Your dad recovering all right?
yes.
Good.
He said, a very good recovery for his age.
Yeah.
So, we thank God for that.
Yeah.
Staying on anything?
Oh, he's on the phone.
It's on the phone for here.
Where we at on the agenda?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock here next. I think Jim's coming back.
Yeah, Mark will have to be in.
Mhm. So what's the immediate needs that you gotta do for?
Well, it changed a little bit.
Roads and bridges,
The roads and bridges,
culverts.
culverts.
Cleaning ditches or.
Want to buy some corn stalks?
And rock.
Slightly
An extra
used
rock.
with a little mud on them, you know, no extra charge for the dirt, you know.
It's good topsoil.
My goodness, there's tons of them, and, you know, they just wash off that field, so when they chisel plow, you know, they cut them all up, all like that.
Last time we had that, we had them clean the ditches, but some of them didn't necessarily want them put back on the field because they, you know, they were worried if there were maybe rocks or something in them, so they didn't. And so some of them, I think they had to haul away. I don't
I
know.
don't know where exactly they went with them, if they burned them or went to landfill or what, but, you know, different chemicals from different fields, so they're afraid to put it back on the wrong field.
Mm-hmm.
Different needs for corn or beans, and
It's a sick sight when you see that soil and all that.
there's a lot of black dirt in the ditches and down the stream.
Too much rain, your area?
No, not like here. And what happened in Oklahoma last night, yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
They had this
you know,
Yeah.
sometimes we think we have a top, but then when you look at
Other areas.
destitute areas.
And more got hit. Figured on what year it was.
99.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
They said this morning it's the third or fourth time for that city.
And
That's
the
the
same
one,
path.
Yeah.
Well, it showed yesterday on the Weather Channel, just had it happen to have it on, and they could see it coming, and they said it was moving so slow. And it was, they figured the winds were over 200 miles an hour, but they said it would just grind everything up as it goes, and it did.
Yeah, it was on the ground for nearly an hour, and
It was
they said,
digging up the grass
Yep.
and sucking it.
when you see a brick home, it looks like this table, I mean, just to tear a brick home to completely apart, that's unreal.
Or a concrete block school.
Yeah, and at the elementary school too, that was bad.
Two of them,
Yeah, too.
and the hospital's gone, one
I
of them.
think I'd relocate the city, I think, and try it for another. Doesn't look like the odds are too good there if this is the fourth time.
Yeah, it make you think about it.
But where would you relocate? They said that in Texas, right there is just where the cold and the heat hit, and it's just a, you know,
Tornado.
for miles, it's just
Tornado
tornado
alley.
alley, and that's,
Almost have to move underground, I guess. I mean, it's just.
Well, you know,
it's
that's a
sad.
thought too, you know. With different structures, you know, it's like the water tower seemed to, you know, that round structure kind of seems to weather the storm. Or your dome type houses, or partially underground. Should I look for Stan?
Yeah.
Tell them Jeff went home.
It could only wait so long.
Yeah.
Got another appointment.
Yeah, another point.
What's interest at? Not too bad, is it? I was gonna say.
Depends on how many years you go, you know,
Yeah.
10 years.
That's it, really.
we could pay you, if we was to do it today, we'd be less than that.
Then I'm gonna have to run because Jeff Heil is here, yeah, and I'll maybe we can sit down and talk to you on the first day. Okay, you bet.
There's an extra chair down there. Okay, well, sure there's
Snuck in the other way.
I did. Well, I didn't really know where I was at first.
Well, I don't think we do neither sometimes. Well, I guess, Jeff, right now, the preliminary projections are that we're looking at possibly building a 31,000 square foot building. They are estimating it to be $165 a square foot, the architects are. Total cost of a new courthouse to be approximately 5.1 million, with 1.4 million additional costs of demolition, architectural, all of the other things that go with that. So, I mean, they're basically looking right now at a $6.5 million cost. And,
I got 6.6 here, Stan.
okay,
6.6, 685, 275, and the courthouse itself is 5.5. And
Okay,
then site costs are 375,000.
okay, so 6.6,
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine. But in any event, in that neighborhood. And I realize that, you know, that figure can change a little bit. We have, as you're aware, I think 400,000 left to pay on the jail, the 1 cent option sales tax that we're using. And so we're gonna try to look at what our options can be then for, and I guess that's what we have asked you here for.
It's always a pleasure to be on Mitchell County. Even in the midst of what we call disaster. But it's all in perspective of where you're at. Like you said, it's disaster in one place is much different than another. But this morning, I've laid out basically just options. And I estimated 6.5 million, just for discussion purposes today, is close. Of what are your options to be able to move forward for a courthouse? And first of all, you know, number one, you know, as I'll just summarize, everything is sort of supporting data behind, I just sort of summarized this first page is, you know, call an election, and generally when you call election, it's a 60% vote. You gotta have 60% passage, and that leaves full authority to levy against property tax. You don't have to levy property tax, but that is most of the time when you call election, property tax. 6.5 million over 20 years is 63 cents per thousand. That's what the levy is. So, whatever your taxable value is, 63 cents for a $6.5 million bond issue.
For 20 years.
20 years. And 20 years is the max you can do on GO bonds. Now, revenue bonds, you can go over 20, but any type of general obligation, even if it's a TIF bond or a GO local option, we've got limitations of 20. Now, if we do strictly revenue bonds, you know, we'll get into revenue. But first of all, the most efficient tax rate, interest rate is GO bond. So number one is if you call election and do a levy. Another one is an election. Number two is using your current, after we pay the jail off, the 200,000 that you're using, that's currently going to the jail. If we just supplemented that, you'll still call an election, and it's let people vote, if you supplemented that levy with the current 200,000, then your levy would be 34 cents. Not quite cutting it in half, but pretty close. So you could call the election, say, hey, do a promotion about it, say, we want to use the current local option after the jail's paid off. And like we talked, Stan, I mean, we could gear this structure, so once the jail's paid off, we just start rolling it over to this, so that we don't have a, a blip in there. So we would, structure the first 2 years minimum, a less payment, just, and supplement the 200 with the second.
So you're saying we could say that we basically want to borrow X number of dollars, and we're going to ask the public to approve of our,
Right,
so we could do that on a,
yes.
I
And the
don't
thing
know.
is, in the Iowa code, particular for counties, cities are not that. And I know there was something, and I don't know if it got passed, I talked with Bob Johnston, administrative rules, we've been trying to get it done through ISAC for years, is cities, if you're gonna borrow $3 million for a project, and the project ended up being $4 million, and you had $1 million of cash, you could do the project. Counties, when you list a $6.5 million jail, or a courthouse, let's say cost came in $7 million. You cannot, you gotta stop the project at 6.5, even if you had cash. And it's a technicality, the counties, schools don't have that, cities don't have that, counties they got that technicality. So it's careful why I say when we go to the ballot, we have to tell the public, it's gonna cost not to exceed this amount, even though you say you're gonna borrow $7 million, you say you only wanna borrow $3 million, you still have to tell the public it's a $7 million project.
That's what makes it hard. That
It
made
made-
it passed.
Well, yeah, because there's confusion there, think, gosh, you're gonna borrow this amount. And even if you've saved money up, cash on hand, you have to tell it. And it might be cleaned up, well, I don't know. It was in a administrative bill, and it was close to being passed. That might have cleaned up, and I don't know yet, I'll have to check. But the old law that we're still, that is, so that's why I say, go to the public on the full amount, and we'll borrow it, but we would subsidize it with, as soon as the jail bonds are paid off, we just roll that so that it would cut that levy down to 34 cents. That's another option. The third option, again, is another call election, but sell it to the public, hey, we're gonna build a $6.5 million courthouse, but we're not gonna raise property taxes, 1 cent. And you can do that using 200,000 from the local option, and then using 250,000 of excess wind power tip, or the wind farm tips. Now, if you look on, I think it's the third, it's the 5th page. This is the cash flow. Yes, landscape one looks like this. This here, I took out all the value because it was such a long, because we had phase 1, phase 2, and I condensed this over so you can just see the dollars. Once we hit in 2015, 16, we're gonna be at $3 million of collections. Potential collections. We're only at 2.2 million, almost 2.3 million that we've already committed up through 2020. We have a $750,000 cushion. Once we hit, we hit the full amount. So that 750 cushion, you could comfortably use 250,000 of it, subsidize it, and not have to raise the property tax levy. Now, this is just discussion today. I'm not advocating any of these right now. You've asked me for what can you legally do. So we're just gonna lay everything on the table and have discussions. We're not advocating one step over the other. We're just gonna say, you could do it without raising property taxes, and still, as you can look, when you did that, I put that last column, 250,000, that'd be adding another 4 million over the life of it. We're currently committed, column to the left, 19 million out of the 51 million. So we're not at 50% of using of what the wind is. We add the 4 million to it, we would be close to 50%. So that's if we subsidize it, part with local option and part. So, and the thing is, we've had this discussion here in the last year or two on some project, I says, hey, you've got some room down the road, but you've gotta wait a couple years, you know. We need to get to 15, 16 really, you know. If we were talking right now, as this comes in, we can do that now, but I cautioned you, I think, a year ago. You know, he's talking some projects, I said, yeah, you can, but I think you need to take a breather till we get to where we're at full collections.
But could we,
But now we're at the point, say you do an election later this fall, time you get construction done, this fits into the timeline.
and we could possibly borrow enough excess to make that first year payment if.
Yes, we would borrow the interest to make it, we would lower, and actually, if you look at, I actually did that. If you look at the third page, this is roughly the structure. You know, 6.5 plus, well, 6.5 million net, 6.6 because we're borrowing interest, we're borrowing the cost, but we've got the payment geared to the right to the local option sales tax, and then you can see in 2017, I bumped that payment up, matching it, that's when we would be able to use the TIF. So this is sort of the structure you would look at, and those are today's interest rates. That make sense?
Today's interest rate on average and for the 20 years, what is that kind of?
In 20 years, you're about at 2.2. If you look at the second page, here are the interest rates. This chart graph here. And, you know, we've been rated at about AA, you know, so we're in that left column, bank qualified, in the A plus range, and those are our rates. You can see if we do 10-year stuff, I mean, we're under 2%, we're 1.5, you know, when we blend them all. 15 years, 20. I'm speaking 20 years today because legally, if we go against, if you were gonna put it on property tax, the reason I say is you don't want to raise that levy any more than you have to, and that's generally on a large issue, we do it 20 years. Now, if you were going to, it's back to that wind tip, if you wanted to go higher rate, as you can see back on that fifth page, once we get to 2019, we're paid off, we're gonna have $3 million available, and we could pay this off.
That was
Really?
the question, how,
Yeah,
if you general obligation
if you
bonds.
were gonna do it against that, against partly with local option and part with wind tip, we could gear this up and pay it off in 15 years easily.
I was just gonna ask, would shorter term be better? than-
But it's like today, I guess this is a good day to have this discussion after what happened a couple nights ago, is you're gonna have needs on roads. Do you wanna use all of this and pay off the courthouse as quick as you can off of the wind tip when you know, look at the emergencies that could come and disaster come upon you, knowing you've got some cushion here already, we've got a 750,000 cushion annually that, for emergency purpose on roads.
Thanks. Yep.
Even if you use 250,000 of it now,
Yep.
that still leaves 500,000. And
Okay,
as we
very
get
good.
5 years, 6 years down the road, you're gonna have $2 million in it.
So
For a year.
bonds are callable after how many years?
Generally,
Is it
the
fine?
rule of thumb is half the issue.
So it'd be 10 years out.
7 years. 7 years is the most efficient. We can do it less, but the investor may require a little higher rate.
Because you get past 20 and 21.
Oh yeah, we could have a call date of like 19 or 2020.
Well, you got the roads are paid off, there's $3 million
There's 3 million
Available.
annually.
annually available. I mean, you can pay this
You
courthouse.
can pay it off in 2 to 3 years.
Right,
You could, if you voted it all.
right.
So, timing wise, I get blending it with the jail coming off and as aggressive that we put the road projects already, you're getting in that time frame where you're gonna have a lot of dollars that you, if you went with the road, these routes
Right.
and not have the property taxpayers pay it, you're in a position to do that. But all of those, well, I'll take that back, under this step of, calling for an election and getting it passed. Now, the other route is, what we took at the other time is, you can do a hearing subject to reverse referendum, and if that happens again, there's a way, I'm not advocating for the public pro or against, but it's really educating the public. We've got several steps, and let's go through the rest of our options, because
Let me interrupt just for a second. That was Brenda, and she said that the declaration for trying to get us a disaster has to come from Ray. And he has to have, as part of his thing, a summary of why we need this declaration. And so Josh and Brenda's gonna try to work on it this afternoon. I'll try to sit down too with Ray and help coming up with, corn stalks, all of this stuff is stuff that's gonna be very costly to remove, blah, 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 blah. So, and that's gonna try to go into market.
He probably can't do anything till he hears from Rich on different costs too, I would imagine.
Well, not necessarily cost, I think all you have to really do is, it's gonna
Explain
take,
what all happens, so
Okay.
that you can call the disaster.
yeah, it's gonna take, we have hundreds of miles of corn stalks and ditches, blah, blah, blah.
And all the roads are washed out, and all the bridges.
Yeah, so, just to give you that quick heads up, and so if anybody has any ideas on that, why. Okay, sorry about that.
That's all right.
We're down to number 4, is that?
We're down to 4. Now, the first 3 was, 3 different options of calling an election, whether it's full debt service or limited debt service. The 4th one is a pure local option sales tax revenue bond, which you currently have on the jail. That one, would not be subject to a referendum. You got a little higher interest rate, and we need to probably on this one have a reserve fund, but this would limit the bond issue. Currently, if you devoted the full $340,000 that was in your budget, the most you could borrow against that would be $4.2 million.
And
if
why
you-
is that?
Huh?
And why is that?
Because you don't have enough, it's gonna take a $500,000 payment, and you're, and $340,000 all your money, so it's not enough money to pay for $6.5 million.
Unless the local option rises,
Can't pay the
you
debt.
get more taxes.
There's not enough local option to pay $6.5 million.
But you're basing that on 20 years, right?
I am.
Okay, could you go out farther than 20 years?
We could, but then it becomes, if you look at that interest rate chart that I gave you, it goes up, you're paying a lot of,
Interest.
if we have to do it to get coverage, sometimes I bump 1 or 2 years, but if you pump it out to 30 years, if that's the only way you could do it, but as an advisor, as much interest that you're paying on there, I don't think it's your most efficient, but we still we couldn't get to $6.5 million. We might get to $5 million, but we're not gonna get to 6.5. So there's no way with the current local option that you could do the full amount with just that. It'd be nice, but you just, so that's one. But now the other is, now if you just use the current 200,000, you'd only have a $2.5 million bond. That's all that would support. Now, number 5 is a pure TIF revenue bond. Now, this is another way without calling election. You could combine the local option pure revenue bond and combine a pure TIF revenue bond and use the combination to get up to 6.5, and you would not have to call an election that way. Interest rates on a pure revenue bond, when you look at that, it's tax exempt, interest rates are gonna be, on local option, they're gonna be 0.5% higher. On a TIF, they're gonna be a full percent higher than what's on that chart. A TIF revenue.
Can they do a reverse referendum?
No, not if it's a pure TIF revenue. Now, when we've done the GO-backed TIF one, that's requires a reverse referendum. But that's why when we go, I like to tell the public, hey, here's the most efficient way. If they protest it and you're gonna move anyway, what it does is saying, our out is, it's gonna cost us more in interest, it's not as an efficient borrowing. We can proceed without an election, but it costs more money. So that's generally like telling the public is if you're forced to it, and it's a good thing to have for discussion. You've got options. Now, I'm not saying no, I'm just gonna say legal option. I'm not saying politically is the best thing, but the local option would not be a problem with that. A TIF revenue bond on a courthouse, it's not, they've been used for fire stations, they've been used for city halls. I know there's some legislative discussion, and it's not a black, it's not a white deal. You say, how do you prove, what you gotta do is say, it's creating economic development. Now, you have to say, how is it creating economic development for your county? Now, you as supervisors make that statement and do it, and it fits in the plan, you can do it. But it's not as clear as when we did the roads and bridges. That's very clean cut, economic development, rural. Fire stations, city halls, courthouses, it falls in the middle category. I'm not advocating one way or the other, I'm just telling you what you can do so the public knows that you've got options without an election. Are they good ones? You have to decide that. So, as we get down the list, I started with the most efficient interest, lowest cost to the taxpayers, lowest interest rates. As we go down the list, they are options, but the cost to the taxpayers go up. But you go down, it still gives you option of proceeding without going to a vote. Not that we're trying to go around a vote, right, but, I mean, you're faced with that. You know, you've had an election, you've had a petition already against you, so we know what's against you. If you're faced, you know, if you can't live within these walls for X amount of years, and you want to proceed, there are ways to get there. And you just have to weigh the pros and cons of that. Now, the other one, next one down, is called lease purchase agreements. These have had some success and some failures in Iowa. You know, what they do is you can circumvent the construction bidding, you can circumvent some elections and all this and doing it, but your costs go up. I've had some counties that try to get jails done through these. And what happens is you know, usually somebody out of state comes to you as a contractor and says, hey, we got this great way, we're gonna build you this, we're gonna lease it back to you, and at the end of it, you get it back. Yeah. But what you find out, their interest is within the lease, their construction costs, there's so many things hidden, and then they get in the middle and they go, oh my God. You know, there's an efficient thing that the state has done with municipal building is public bidding on projects. You get your lowest bids and go into the lowest market rate on interest rates. As we get down to these, that sort of, it's a step behind there, and I say, can you do it? Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it, but it's one of these things when you're faced with them. Some communities have been faced and had to do something, and you go there. And then the last one is a general fund loan. Not that you have extra money in your general fund, but you can do a hearing on a general fund and then make the payments and borrow against that. we don't have money to operate, but that is another option.
Jeff, I've
Yes.
got a question for you. Let's just look at option number 3.
Okay?
Let's just say everything goes forward,
Election passed.
election, well, let's just say there's not even a reverse referendum.
Say, you could do a hearing on
Okay.
number 3.
Yep, no reverse but my
Well,
question, yeah,
subject to reverse if you did
Yeah.
not get a petition.
yep, okay. My question is, let's say we're 4 years out.
Okay.
All of a sudden, the Board of Supervisors say, wait a minute, we've got $500,000 excess wind TIF revenue.
Mm-hmm.
We want to make all of our payments from that and use that local option sales tax money for something else. Can they do that or not? Or does if once we say the funding is coming from local option sales tax and TIF, does it have to come from there?
No.
Or it can come from anywhere,
It
right?
can come. That's what's nice about a general obligation loan, is you can do an election and say, we are subject to levy the full amount, but we don't have to levy anything. We can use local option, we could use road use tax, we could use wind TIF, we could use general fund. You could use every source of revenue that you have, a combination each year, back and forth. Now, you have the legal ability. Now, whether you really want to make a statement to the public, we're trying to keep it from these 2 sources or 3 sources. But legally, Mark, is you could mix and match any balance of local option and TIF anywhere through that bond payment. Or they could say, we're gonna use that money everywhere else, and we're gonna levy taxes. So I mean, not that you, I mean, that was your goal not to, if it is. But that's if you go to a vote or go to the reverse, both of them are gonna give you that option.
So basically, the notice would say, let's just say, we want to borrow $6.7 million.
Mhm.
Once it passes, or there is no reverse referendum, the city or the county can then decide, well, we're gonna levy 63 cents, 1,000, or we're gonna go part with loss, part with TIF. Once there's a general obligation, GO bond passes, the county can use any of those
Any of those
methods.
first 3, in any combination,
Okay, I just wanted to understand that the county's not locked in. If the Board of Supervisors say, we're gonna levy 63 cents,
no.
they're absolutely not locked in. 2 years from now, when everything's up and going, they can say, well, we've decided we're gonna use all TIF money, and it's not gonna cost anybody a penny.
That's if you list it as TIF available when you do it. Now, if you just do a GO and not have your urban renewal plan amended for it, you can't go back retroactive.
Right.
You're gonna have to amend your current plan for this. You can never go backwards. You can always put it in there and wait 5 years to dip into it. But if you're thinking about paying the courthouse at all, any wind TIF, even if you had an election, if you're thinking any about using it, you would need to amend it before you have any expenditures. Amend that
Courthouse is in the
plan. Okay. And it already is. It already is. Is it designated as, it's in the area, but then you've got an area and you have to have a use. Does it have both? See, now
It's in
there's.
the area.
It's in the area. Then you have to amend your plan, why areas you can spend it on. Did we do that already?
No.
That would need to be amended.
Well, I think we have, we just
We
don't have
talked
the-
it-
we don't have the specific word courthouse in there. But I think when some of those other
But the-
projects were done, wasn't it amended then to
But
just
the-
basically include almost everything?
Yes, but there was a law change on TIF a year ago, July, that on buildings, you have to be very specific
Okay.
on that. So we have to be very specific what the,
Yeah, because they'll need documentation.
yeah, you're right, 2 years ago it wouldn't have mattered, but with the new law change,
Okay.
that would be the only thing you would want to do before you,
That's why we
You-
hired you, Jeff.
right. I mean, you can have engineering costs, those are fine. But once you start having brick and mortar and all that, you cannot pay for any of that after the fact of an amendment. Planning and design is okay. So,
You can figure that all out, Barb, and all.
Question, you was talking about lease purchases, all line looking at
Mhm.
that for their jail.
yes.
I had heard that, but I wasn't positive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in other words, quite often, every project that we've worked on so far, be it the new jail, the county services building, we've had a number of change orders. Some of them have been advantageous to us, some of them not. So if, again, they're estimating a 6.6, 6.7, we would really want to be a little higher than that,
I would do 6.9, just,
6.995, yeah.
That was gonna be one of my questions.
you know, just because
How
of
much
that.
contingency do we want in this?
Well, it isn't that you're trying to say, hey, we want to add all this other extra. It's the idea is if there's a cost overrun, it's back to what I told you. Unless, and I need to follow up with Justin on that, if that passed, then we don't have to worry about that as much. But I don't know if it got brought through or not. We thought it was gonna pass for the last 5 years. And I wouldn't bet on it yet either. So, but let's assume under the old law, is you're right, we would, it's not that we're trying to talk like, all of a sudden the costs are going up, it's just,
Yeah, because I mean, we can run into one of these deals where they put in boiler A, we find out now they no longer either make boiler A or it doesn't really meet the criteria in that, and they're saying, okay, we need boiler B. That's another $100,000 for boiler B above and beyond. I mean, these things will happen. We've, like I say, ran into that twice already. And
so that was really just a summary of some options. You know, as you get closer, wanting to really narrowing down. But it is, it's something you really want to share with the public is you have a need here. How are you gonna get it done? It isn't circumventing an election, that's not the point, it's like, okay, what is the most efficient, whether you passed it or did a hearing for it. If it forces you down to some of these others, yes, can they block? Yes, but then all of a sudden, if you're gonna go ahead, it costs more. And so, interest, and at some of these last ones, construction costs.
Yeah, material keeps going up.
But, I mean, because they're not, you know, circumventing some of the last two you could do with, and I'm not advocating going around the construction, I mean, do those lease purchases. Like I say, yes, all lines, and they've been in a battle for that for 2-3 years on that. And Ringgold County was another one on jail. I worked on it several years, and Lucas County, you know, some slick salespeople came in, convinced them, oh, we don't need an election, we're going through this route. And we actually passed elections on Ringgold, and it was just a mess. People can schmooze you and say, hey, we're gonna do all this, give you all your sales tax dollars, we can get it done for this payment. Just be cautious. And I've actually had one of those groups call me about, I don't know if they've already approached you. I'm not gonna say the group, but they've been wanting their construction groups, and they say they can do the whole thing. I'm just gonna tell you, be very cautious.
Could I interject something? In the 1990s, we did have a lease purchase group come in on the jail.
Was it successful?
No. I started researching things from other counties about this particular group, and we got rid of them and brought somebody else in. So, yeah, I mean, they did.
It's options, but, and I'm saying, there's some good ones out there, but there's some that are not. And you gotta do a lot of homework, and you better have your attorney on call all the time because to catch them.
You're talking about, what you mentioned about costing more. Last fall, early fall, stopped at Dickinson County, talked to the auditor there, and said when we started, we were a little over 8 million. We had 4 boats. Finally passed it over 14.
14.9.
Yeah. So, that's true.
Dickinson County.
Beautiful courthouse.
That is,
Yeah.
that,
But look at their land values over there too.
They finally passed it.
But look at all that time that was spent, so.
But it was a courthouse and jail there. Yeah. It's quite an elaborate structure.
Well, now you show up.
Great things here.
Hello, Jim Hyde. You're coming to help. with
Morning, Mr.
engineering,
Hyde.
I bet, huh?
I was thinking of even giving you the quote.
Come on, you're talking to somebody, don't just walk out.
stand is stand.
There's a good quote for the paper. I need one. I was looking for a good quote, you just gave it to me.
I agree with Lowell. Hyde is retired, he could wait.
Makes a difference who it is.
So Bob, you got any questions? Concerns or
Well,
thoughts? or-
I don't know, this is gonna be enough to digest for now, I think.
Mhm.
I guess the question I did ask earlier was if the shorter term is better, and
Well,
you get a lower interest rate. but-
the reason I kept 20, I wanted to keep apples to apples compared to 20.
Sure,
Once
yeah,
we
I
start comparing
understand that.
15, there's so many
There's one
options,
back
but
here
yes.
if you want.
If you're thinking
Yeah,
about
just to the left.
using that option 3, absolutely, we would want to shorten it up, absolutely. But I wouldn't recommend doing it so tight that doesn't leave you cushion. But some, get a blended somewhere.
Jeff, could I ask
I
a
just know
question?
that the bankers, they say the shorter is less interest you're paying.
Oh, it is, but the other part is,
And lower interest rate, not just,
but with economic development, with roads, and just what happened a couple of nights ago, I can't emphasize enough, and the same thing when I worked at Parkersburg, when they went through their stuff, is even though you've got very good, to do short as you could, I just recommend you leave some cushion because,
right, yeah, I understand that.
say you don't get disaster aid and you need money, you could very well dip into this. You might need to do $1 million just for your cleanup.
Right?
You never know when you're gonna have a disaster. You could
That's right.
have more than one a year.
And so you could do $1 million on cleanup in here and pay that off fairly quickly. I don't know what your costs are yet, but if you can't find the other dollars for disaster cleanup, you wanna leave some cushion for those.
So we can use TIF dollars if needed for emergency.
Well, you're gonna have to,
We'd have to
again, fit within
have
the
the
plan
hearing
for
and-
economic development, which again is for your roads, it fit again, but yes. Mhm. Well, Stan, I mean, is this sort of what you was expecting this morning, or
No, this
did
is-
I fall short, or?
No, I think this is exactly what,
Betty had a question.
pardon?
I think Betty had a question she wanted to ask.
Well, I was simply gonna ask if all 5 of these options, because it's a county, that if it exceeded what you had said, that you had to stop everything. That you couldn't spend anymore.
If you,
On any one of the 5, you were saying that if you said it was gonna be 6.5 million, and then, you'd already spent that, and you still had work to do, you had to stop.
that's
That was your-
only on the general
Okay,
obligations.
that's what I wanted.
Not on revenue bonds.
Right.
If, on this, for instance, of a TIF revenue
Sure.
or the local option, that would not be the case. Just the
Geo.
geo.
Thank you.
I think this gives us a much clearer idea of what direction. Tomorrow, when we meet with the architect, again, I think we're gonna have a little better feel of, and we're definitely gonna ask the questions. I mean, how comfortable is he on costs and that? Because I really don't wanna go until November, December to make a decision, if, you know, and spend a lot of money. I'd rather, if they're comfortable with the 6.6, 6.7, I'd like to really take this for the next 2 months if we have to the public, have as many meetings as we can, so on and so forth, and move forward. I don't know what the rest of you think.
I wanna talk to the architect and find out if we're getting cardboard walls or what kind of walls we're getting, you know, because 6.6 or $6.7 million, what are we buying? I mean,
Yeah,
we're
that
not
far.
gonna land on this number now and come to find out that, you know, maybe it's nothing that we want. You know, and that's what he's been saying all along, that our meetings now going forward are gonna be a little more in-depth, and we're gonna be working with the engineers and the HVAC people, and, you know, we don't wanna end up with,
No, I agree with you that too, but I mean,
so I'm
But if
kinda
you-
reluctant to tell the public that, oh, this is what it is, when we don't know that that's what it is.
We're not that far along in our plan blueprints and
We have
things.
a floor plan, that's all we got.
Yeah, we've got a floor plan, but we don't have the up and down plan.
I
We
don't know if they'll,
got the horizontal, but not the vertical.
HVAC, we got-
Now, does that include demolition of the other, or what?
right, so, yeah. It's got all, the whole plan, everything is there, I mean, it's site prep and,
But it's always, the longer you wait, the material costs go up, your interest rates go up, and especially after a disaster like in Oklahoma, material, you watch plywood costs go up. You just-
and
And the hurricane on the East Coast.
so,
no, but they're gonna also, tomorrow, he's gonna have an understanding of what he wanted for walls and that. I mean, you know what I'm
so that's what
saying?
we need to ask,
Yeah.
how much stained glass we get and how much,
Yeah, no problem.
you know, not.
But, yeah, I mean, it's, like
Right.
you say, the outside walls are gonna be brick. I mean, how much, how thick, how whatever. They should be able to tell us all of that
Right.
tomorrow.
And that's what we need to know.
Yeah, and I don't disagree, and if it takes another month or two, I don't disagree there neither, but I mean, as soon as we really have a pretty good handle on that, I really don't wanna drag it out neither.
I agree with
The
you
other
there, Stan,
direction,
and when
yeah.
the architect says, I'm comfortable, this is probably where it's gonna be, all we need to do is tweak some things, and it's not
Yeah.
gonna go over this cost.
I mean, you know, yes, they have to lay it all out yet, but they pretty well know how they're, you know, what they're gonna use and so on. That's, I think we move forward. I don't know, Mark, do you have a comment, question?
I agree. Once you've got your cost, you add your, whatever you think Jeff says, 3%, 5%, you know, contingency, and
Yeah.
uh,
Once you
have
get
your
your
public-
numbers and
give
get-
your public, you know, have some, like you said, have public forums on it, you know.
And I take it we can, if we wanted to, let's say, make 7,000 copies, big copies of here's what it would look like, here's how we plan on financing it, and this and that and the other thing, we're allowed to do that right now.
Yeah, no pending election.
As long as there's no pending election, we can explain exactly what we
Yeah,
want
I
to do
mean,
and how we're going to do it.
Again, campaign, even going in election, if you're just giving facts, if you're not advocating pro or con, you can use sources, county sources, to give factual information. Here's, if, you know, if a yes vote, a no vote, you're not saying vote either way, but here are the facts. Those are, yes, but you just have, you have to be very careful not to insinuate one way or the other, just say, here's what's before us, if we don't do
Yep.
this, you know, you might have the
Yep.
cost of, what's it cost here, and what, you know, the demolition of, I mean, you could be off-site for a long time, but it's gonna cost you, it's gonna cost taxpayers, and you just need to tell that.
And just our rent costs here are over 100,000 a year, just on what we're renting, and that's not utilities,
And sooner or later, you gotta do something with that building, even if you were gonna stay here forever, you got that cost over there, that you have to do something at some time.
Just for your reference, the election, you know, commission, where we had a complaint filed before, She said, anytime you want to put anything in the paper, publish anything, send it down to us. Pretty quick turnaround. We'll look at it and say, yes, it's okay, or we need to change this, but this, she said, then you don't have any problems. Anything you publish, you put in the paper, any hearings you have, they'll look at them ahead of time and give you an advisory opinion. Real quick, she said.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Like I said originally, everybody has an opinion, but the facts are the facts.
That's right. That's what we gotta deal with. Facts.
Could I just ask, how can you go ahead with this and you don't know how much it's gonna cost to clean up the county? It could be millions. From the rains and the roads, and you might not get disaster aid.
Well, Mary, under that type of scenario, you're gonna have people sitting there saying, well, you never should do anything because we may have a problem in the future. And basically, yeah, it might cost us $1 million or $2 to whatever, and it may not, but regardless, we need a courthouse. We've got to be able to do something, and we're at this point in time, and just to put it off and do nothing is not an option as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I'm not a quitter, so I mean, this, FEMA's always come through for us in the past when we had disasters, so I mean, I'm pretty confident that they'll probably do it again.
And this is what, Jim Hyde is gonna come back at 11 o'clock. I think he's gonna help us today to also work on trying to get this disaster thing. So the board wants to stay here at 11. They say Jim wants to talk to us, and that was a good deal. That
I'll let Peggy know we can't come today.
Okay.
Pardon?
I'll let Peggy know we can't come out today.
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, for how long are you gonna be?
How long do you think Jim's gonna be here? It's only 11 o'clock, not even 11 o'clock yet.
Well, yeah, why don't you just hold up on Peggy right now yet?
Yeah, we can always go out there.
We can always either call her one way or the other.
We have county home inspection today.
No, it just, I'd like to go out there once a month now. And
Get the updates.
I think she was available till 2, I thought she told me so.
Well,
Is there anything else from Mr. Heil? I think we have a pretty good understanding of the directions that we,
did I hear correctly that today's interest rates would possibly around 2, 2.5?
On a 20-year, yeah. And if we were locking down at that 12 to 15 year, we would be well under 2.
That makes a big difference on a project this size. Tremendous.
Well, appreciate the opportunity to share.
well, if we were gonna use TIF, and under the scenario we have, we'd really be better off to try to do like a 15-year or something of that nature, wouldn't we?
Probably.
As opposed to
12
a,
may be short, but yeah, either side of 15 years is probably the best.
Nothing shorter than 15.
but, yeah, because I mean, truthfully, and I was the one that made the mistake, I think, earlier when we tried to decide on revenue bond, or I mean, on the road things, to pay them off right away. We really didn't have other, we should have stretched them so we had a little more money.
Yeah, I know, that was the pros and cons of pay it off as quick as you can, but then it's like I always say,
Yeah,
leave
leave a little.
some.
So yeah, if we would do a 15-year, we've left some on the table, this and that, and yet again, we're able to, that to me is starting to make sense.
It's one thing if it's 4 or 5% interest, but you know, we've always been in that 3 or something. You know, when we're interest rates we're talking, you don't wanna go, you wanna go fair short, but don't cut yourself,
Right.
no breathing.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, down the road, you can pay them off sooner.
Yeah, you leave the option to pay.
Okay, we can.
That's
Well, it really would make more sense down the road if we go with the 1 cent option and the TIF revenue to basically use the TIF and GO bonds and, or not GO, I mean the 1 cent option we could use completely for something else, that property tax relief or whatever the case may be. And it really helps the taxpayers of Mitchell County. The more we could use the windmill, and like I say, we could always use them the 1 cent option for lowering property taxes, nothing else.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding this right, and the public is. I'm confident that I am. Come 2016, those windmills are going to be generating $3 million worth of tax revenue, correct?
projected.
No, that's
I think
actual,
it.
that's
Yep.
actual,
That's with the ones, just the ones that are there,
that's the actual valuation.
because that's when they come
Now,
on full well.
Your levy rate can adjust a
Yeah.
little bit, but
Right.
That's what I meant.
that's the only thing, is that levy rate.
So there's $3 million a year worth of revenue.
Mhm.
And what year are those roads paid off?
The one is
20
paid off in
and 21, I
19 and
think.
20.
20 and 21, I think.
Yeah.
if I
Yeah,
remember
I think so
correctly.
too.
Is that right, Mark?
20.
So you got about another 10 years at $3 million a year, so about another $30 million worth of tip money that's gonna be coming in. Because we didn't sunset it. That's the one person wanted us to.
Well, still, it does have a 20-year life.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
'cause
some,
it's that kind
there was, somebody wanted us to
Oh,
end it after the
yeah.
current project.
Well, actually, they can have longer than the 20 year as long as you make a commitment on year 19 or whatever for another to go out. I mean,
That's gray.
yeah,
of. Cities do it.
but that's what I was hearing, it is possible.
Are we gonna be
I
bought by
won't
that
comment
tomorrow?
No, I wouldn't.
That's 2033, no, what year is that?
I am not gonna be here 2030.
2031, Mark, we're gonna be gone when that rolls around.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, very good.
Thank you
Again,
very
we
much.
appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We'll keep in touch.